everybody? It's the Outlaw John Rocha here, up late on a Sunday night to record my spoiler review for the season premiere of The Last of Us. This debut tonight on HBOMax. And I'm so excited to jump into and talk about all the things that went on in this episode. As someone who's never played the video games, I really went in with a different perspective, different point of view. I did read one article that gave me a little bit of a background of some of the stuff that happens in the game, but nothing that was spoiled from what we got in this episode. So I'm thankful for that article. Just give me a good background of what's happening here and let me enjoy this first episode completely cold and all the events that happen with all these characters completely cold. But before I jump in too deep into this review, just want to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell button. Come and join the Outlaw Nation. I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I've set out these massive goals for myself this year because I really want to find a way to get to double my subscribers. I'm at 25.4, something like that. Want to get to 50,000 by the end of the year. Would love your assistance in helping me do that for sure. This one tonight comes from Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl. If you haven't seen Chernobyl, fantastic series, and Neil Druckmann, who is the creator of the games as well. And so just a fascinating combination of two dudes coming together with their different points of views. And, you know, if you're going to break the video game adaptation curse, you bring some of the best people who are out there making series or making films and work with people who have a genuine love for the game. So you really understand what makes these games work. And I think overall, they absolutely knocked this one out of the park. I thoroughly loved what we got in episode 1 here. It was an hour and a half. It's called When You're Lost in the Darkness, and I'm going to jump into it now. Right off the bat, love this opening here. Set in 1968, this talk show. For those of you who watch Dick Cavett shows, you've seen videos. There's videos of this up on YouTube. Go and watch Dick Cavett interviews. It looks exactly like this. Or go watch Parkinson's interviews from the 1968, I think his name was. He was a host there. The setup is almost exactly the same. You have these two scientists going back and forth about the idea of viral stuff versus fungal stuff. And great to see John Hannah as well. Always love John Hannah whenever he pops up anything. But the first scientist talking about this viral situation, which of course is very topical considering how we're dealing with COVID now. But John Hannah coming in talking about this fungal stuff. And this is where we get a little bit of the exposition that we need that we're going to get later on. As I look at this, it is the virus that is going to originate from a real-life fungi in the genus Cordyceps that has mutated. That's how this whole thing is going to come about. But they do a great job of making it feel like a very natural conversation that you would see on a talk show, and having that give us an idea of what we're going to be seeing here as the show jumps in time. Also, it's really interesting to note that 1968 is a very tumultuous year in the history of America, in the history of our world. We're still in Vietnam. We have Robert Kennedy killed. Martin Luther King Jr. is killed. And certainly tomorrow, as I'm recording this, is MLK Day. Some of you may be watching this on MLK Day. So very interesting to choose that date to start this off with. And of course, there was the Democratic National Convention. A lot of drama, a lot of shit went down in 1968. So a perfect time to kind of lay the groundwork of dread and fear for people who are old enough to remember, or historical scholars who understand the importance of 1968. But then we jump to 2003. We get to meet PEDRO PASCAL, who is playing Joel here, and we get to meet his daughter, Sarah, who's played by Nico Parker. So nice to see Nico Parker coming in as Sarah. Look, this is a thankless role for Nico Parker to come in, because this is a spoiler review. She dies. So you have to kind of connect to her really quickly, connect to their relationship. And I think they did a great job of establishing them as separate characters, establishing her role in the house. There is no mom in the house. She's basically taking care of Joel when he's awake, and, you know, he's out working, doing construction, as we find out a little bit later. But their relationship is what we have to connect to. His love for her has to come through. So by the time we get to that moment where she is shot by that soldier and killed, we need to feel that as deeply as PEDRO PASCAL is acting it in that moment. I think they do a nice job of establishing essentially their life patterns. We see Tommy come in. That is GABRIEL LUNA, so you remember from Terminator Dark Fate. He is Joel's brother. They have a ball-busting back and forth. Joel is clearly the much more serious one. Tommy's the much more relaxed one. And so we see the dynamics, right? We see Sarah take that watch out, take some money out. And of course, in our minds go, okay, why is she taking the money? What's this all about? We find out that she goes to school and then takes a bus and goes and gets her dad's watch fixed. Why? Because it's her dad's birthday, and he makes her she makes him promise to come home with a cake. So like I said, great setting up of the dynamics. We also meet the Adlers, the neighbors there next door, and their situation. As soon as I saw that old lady, I'm like, oh, that old lady is going to come into some. She's going to be the one that's eating everybody. You just knew it. As soon as they saw her, she could barely eat anything. I'm like, oh, it's perfect. She's going to be the one eating everybody, because we've seen that in horror situations all the time. So it was a great little setup there for those who were looking for it and caught it. Anyway, you find out she's fixing his watch, his old military watch there, as a present for him. Later on, we see her kind of seeing weird things happening, but not too weird. She goes over to the Adlers. There's cookies being made. She meets the dog, or she hangs out with the daughter there. And of course, we saw the son earlier. And so they've got this dynamic there as well with the dog Mercy that's there. And then eventually Sarah goes back over to her house, is just kind of having the TV on and hearing the news while she's flipping through a magazine or something. Then Joel comes home and we see their interactions, and we see the love and genuine care they have for each other. And then, of course, Tommy gets put in prison, or in jail rather, because he beat up a dude who was attacking a waitress at a bar. Now, was he attacking her because of the fungal stuff? We don't know, because we see the beginnings of it when the old lady starts to move around behind Sarah earlier in the episode, which I thought was really great. Well, eventually, Joel agrees to go get Tommy out of jail rather, sets Sarah to sleep, takes off. Sarah goes over to the Adlers because she wakes up and no one's in the home, goes over to the Mercy, shows up, the dog. She walks over with Mercy, tries to drag Mercy, and then Mercy takes off. A little symbolic there that Mercy is leaving her, because eventually she will be killed. But her going in there and seeing the blood and seeing the old lady eating her daughter, essentially, and then has gashed her son and whatever, and him begging for Sarah to help her. That was a really harrowing moment. Really well set up. The tension and the slow build, her walking through it, hearing stuff in the kitchen, her sliding on the blood a little bit, then seeing the image of that Adler guy there with the gash through his neck. So just really powerful stuff to lay the groundwork. And then we see the old lady look up and we see the fungal stuff come out. So great hint, just a little bit of a hint of stuff. Then she comes after her, and then of course Joel and Tommy show up, and Joel kills the old lady there, and they take off, and we see the madness. I mean, this was so well done by the direction, Craig Mazin, so certainly a very experienced and adept hand at laying the groundwork for all this madness that we see in the town as everything is falling apart. We see jets flying by, we see planes going down, all this stuff as Joel and Tommy are trying to explain to Sarah what is happening. And we are Sarah in essence, especially those of us who've never played the game. We're asking all these questions. We're not sure what's happening. Sarah is in essence becoming the audience in that moment. There's another smart way to have us connect to the story, is we become Sarah in that situation. So we're connecting to Sarah as well, so that when Sarah dies, we're going to feel that. All the madness in the town, people eating each other, people, shit blowing up, planes flying down and exploding. And we see that shrapnel knock over the truck, and then they wake up a little bit later, and they're trying to figure things out on what to do next. They separate. Joel runs off with Sarah, and Tommy takes off on his own, and they say they're going to meet back at the river. As Joel is carrying Sarah, he attacked by a diner. I love that scene, seeing that guy attack them in the diner, rather, chase them around. You see the uncontrolled ferocity of this thing. Like, it doesn't understand yet how to use the limbs of its victims, this fungal infection, but it has the ability to move them quickly through situations, just not 100% in control. So that's a fascinating little change, a little beginning here, as it's understanding how to use its host. So I thought that was really smart. Then we see the interaction with the army guy, and Tommy saves them, but not before Sarah is killed. And just incredible acting performance here from Pedro Pascal in that moment, holding her. Tommy saying, we can't pick her up because he knows she's dying. He knows she's dead. He knows she's dead. So he doesn't even go to help Joel, because he knew what was going to happen to her, because he'd been a combat veteran, which we saw in that bumper sticker there on the back of his truck. Really smart stuff being laid out in subtle ways that I thought was genius, so that when Sarah is gone, we feel that moment. And then, of course, we cut to 20 years later, and we're seeing Boston and a quarantine zone, and all this stuff is happening there. And we see these bodies being burnt. We see this young kid walking in, and this young kid, we see the young kid is someone who gets shot with the little taser there in the back as he's being tested, and they kind of lie to him. He's going to get all the food he wants, but they know he's got the disease, so they kill him in essence by tasing him. And then we see all these bodies being burnt. So we see that Joel is a, now we see what the future is now, or the present day is for that time, and mirroring our present day, obviously. And then the quarantine zone, we see like people are wearing these, kind of low rent clothes. They're kind of shuffling from one place to another. They've got a community here, but it's controlled by a military authority. We see them executing people who violate the law. So already adding more of the tension and drama here that I thought was that is really well done. And we meet Anna TORV, her character Tess there. She's interacting with Robert and all of that stuff with the battery. But we see that Tess is connected to Joel. So there's a little thing, and we see Joel, and it's great makeup design here. The gray hair that they have on him, the more grizzled approach, the thicker approach. I mean, Pedro Pascal does an excellent job throughout this entire episode. I'm looking forward to see what more layers and levels he's got to bring to Joel. He's much more hardened. We sense that. He's trying to work, takes jobs that pay the most money. He's working out deals with one of the military guys there, giving him some hydro drugs, and we hear the first hint of PEDRO and what that means and what that essentially implies, which is federal established thing. They make pills and bullets. That's what they make there. So getting a little bit more of the world being fleshed out and built out for us, which I thought was really well done. And of course, when you have a transactional society, these are the things that can happen in that kind of a situation, as we see with Tess and Robert in the battery situation as well. But anyway, what it all leads to here is this situation where we hear about the Fireflies. We hear about the military situation. The Fireflies are this rebellion group who are going after the military, who are trying to stop the military from essentially ruling the populace. And we hear that they're terrorists or freedom fighters, depending on your point of view. And then we see the relationship between Tess and Joel, and there's certainly a deep connection between them because they had a battery. There was a truck they were trying to get because Joel wants to go find Tommy, and we do see a scene where he goes into this ham radio operator and tries to find out if Tommy has communicated with him. It's been 3 weeks. Joel doesn't know what's going on with Tommy, so he's concerned. He wants to find Tommy because the first time he's not come back when he's gone out on a mission. We see what they're trying to do, which essentially he wants to go find Tommy. That's what he wants to do. They want to get the truck and go out there. So clearly this has been a plan in motion with him and Tess for a couple of weeks now, since Tommy's essentially gone missing or hasn't returned back to the quarantine zone. So he's focused on that. Then we meet Marlene and we meet Kim, which I think is, these two are just fantastic. I imagine they're essential parts of the game. I don't know how essential they are to the game, but I imagine they are essential parts of the game because the way that they cast this thing and the fantastic actors that they brought in to be a part of to play rather those roles there of Marlene and Kim. And we have MERLE DANDRIDGE, who's playing Marlene, who I thought was just a real dynamo coming in, and Natasha Mumba playing Kim. We hear that they are essentially the leader of the Fireflies for that section of the country, for Boston, their section there. And we see our first shots of Bella Ramsey, who's tied to the floor. And really great work done by Bella here too, conveying this Ellie/Victoria character. She's, how can I say this? She's prickly, she's sassy, she's arrogant, she's cocky, she fights back, she's no wallflower, she's smarter than you think, she fucks with people. And so you see that just from the interactions right off the bat, we're getting a good glimpse of who Ellie is. So I like that. Really nice work done by Bella Ramsey, you know, Lady of Bear Lake. I love her madly. So it's great to see her being a part of this. And then we find out that she has some secret within her that Marlene alludes to. We have no, we're not told what the secret is, but she alludes to it. And as Tess and Joel get information about where Robert is, they sneak into this area, into this hallway, into this hotel, going underneath the sewer system, go up into this hotel, and we see that Robert's been shot, and there's been a big shootout, and everybody's laying there on the ground dead. And then we turn the corner with Tess and Joel, and we see that Marlene's been shot in the side there. Ellie comes out, and Joel subdues her, puts her knife under his foot, and then we have this conversation. Again, this transactional world, this transactional conversation. Marlene tells Joel and Tess, if you take Ellie to this area, I guarantee you'll get your truck, you'll get your weapons, you get your supplies, you get everything you need. Tess works out a deal where it's whatever they want, they'll get for turning in Ellie. Ellie is hesitant to go with them, and eventually Marlene convinces those three to be a trio here and take off. Well, Ellie deals with Marlene deals with the aftermath of the shootout in the hallway there, her and Kim dealing with that. So we see them later. They go back to Joel and Tess's apartment or place there. Tess and Joel have a conversation outside the door. Tess takes off. Then Joel comes in, and we see the back and forth. We see the first hints of their. Obviously, they started on opposite sides there with him subduing her, and so when they're having the back and forth, she's kind of nosily when Tess and Joel having the back and forth outside the door, she's nosily looking through stuff. Again, very intelligent, snooping around, smart, trying to get an understanding of the layout of where she's in, the parameters of her life there, the things she's got to negotiate, trying to get some information so that she can use it and have some kind of leverage in any situation that might pop up. Her and Joel have a back and forth. Joel falls asleep. When he wakes up, Ellie has figured out the code that's in Joel's book, which I thought was really smart. Before Joel can call her out, Tess shows up, then they roll off and try to escape there. They run into the guard who had been there at the beginning, near the beginning, rather, with Joel. And Joel is trying to calm him down, trying to get him to understand, hey, man, let's make a deal here. But the guard doesn't want to make the deal. And Ellie stabs him with the knife that she has, which I thought was a nice moment. And then we have this standoff that's very reminiscent as we see the flashbacks to what happened between the army guy and Joel when he was carrying Sarah. And then Joel unleashes this rage on the guard after he just absolutely pummels him right in front of Ellie and Tess. Tess sees that Ellie tests positive for the virus, but Ellie fights back, showing the scar, saying, I've had this for weeks. I would have been infected by now. So essentially hinting that she is somehow special. There's something about her that's special, and we're not told what it is exactly, but I imagine she has the key to kind of turning around this virus. That's always the beginning of any zombie thing, is who's got the key to stop this from happening. Certainly, how many seasons of Walking Dead, they kept trying to find a way to turn this around or change this or whatever. And the same thing here. So we see that happening, but eventually initially Tess wants to stop this whole situation and kill Ellie, but Ellie talks them out of it. The military are coming, so they take off, and then we cut to the radio playing there, the 1980s stuff, and then we see the last shot of them running in the rain through the ruins of Boston as they're taking off. So some Depeche Mode plays. So overall, I really, really enjoyed the way they fleshed out this world. Loved the performances. Everybody across the board bringing the right amount of grounded grit, hangdog, post-apocalyptic, exhausted, frustrated living that this would eventually be, especially under the rule of military rule, where they're literally executing people like old school Western days, where they're hanging people for violating laws. And we find out that even just leaving the area is punishable by death when that guard later tests Tess and sees that she's not approved to be out in those areas. So a very ruthless society that is built in a certain way in order to be able to function, right? The military likes to have rules. Having been in the military, I know all about that. So there's a fear of that, right? And how many of us are starting to glimpse this in our own world? This idea of people want to tell us what to think, what to say, rebelling against here. It's what the Fireflies are rebelling against, because they don't want to be ruled by the military. They want a more a normal way of approaching ruling in this post clicker world, for lack of a better term. And I appreciate that. I think that's cool to have that kind of dynamic roaming through all of this. And you know, you can look at it from whatever your political affiliation is and see an authoritarian regime in charge. So it was a smart thing they did that make it universal, that any kind of military government can be dangerous when it is inflicting its will on its citizens. And I like that. And I probably will see how the Fireflies way of doing things also has some flaws, also has some issues. So I imagine we're going to be seeing that as the show goes along. I love the set design of everything here. From when we start out in 1968, looks like, as I said, looks like something right out of a Dick Gavitt a conversation, to when we get to 2003, we see his phone. His phone is era specific. The look of everything is kind of era specific, and I like that we got that. The feeling of it being in a cul-de-sac, this idea of like having to go in circles, there's no end, there's no out. The way that militarized, or the militarized zone, the quarantine zone rather, is set up. It's all very believable and well done. The clothing, the domiciles, like where he's living, which is kind of a little bit like a studio apartment, so to speak. There's not much in it there. So all of these things convey what you're supposed to be feeling, which is this little bit of desperation mixed with feeling like your life is going to be threatened at any moment and just trying to live. So I love that they got the vibe here going on. David Fleming's music is really well done throughout the whole episode as well, and laid in at the right moments. Love the interactions with everybody. We're establishing relationships in smart ways. The writing here is to the point, succinct, yet conveying a lot of depth, a lot of complexity to these relationships, which I really enjoy. We're giving characters thrust at us, but characters that feel like they've got a little more going on, so we can connect to the storylines rather than just being throwaway characters. So I like all of that. And certainly we're seeing the positions being taken by everybody. So the story construction of it all really works as well. And as I said, the set design, especially the look of those things, when they come upon, when we see the little fungal coming out of her mouth, of the old lady's mouth, or Adler's mouth there, and then later when we see what that thing looks like against the wall when they're going, when Tess and Joel are going up through the I don't know, the ladder there into the hallway. When we see that thing on the wall, we see the fungal approach to it, and the skeleton, the body, all of that as a look. I really, really enjoyed that. So much of this is here to let you know that when you have the right people involved, video game adaptations can really be effective, can really work. And hopefully this is a new example of what it can be, a new path forward for this kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing more from it as we go along here in this series as well. The direction by Craig Mazin, just fantastic. I mean, just the scene alone in the city when everything is falling apart and you're seeing them all trying to go down different alleys. It almost feels video game-like, the way you're going down different roads and alleys as Tommy is driving Joel and Sarah to try to get away from everything, and how everything just keeps getting worse and worse no matter where they turn. Seeing the explosions, seeing all the people going crazy, running out of the theater, all that kind of stuff, and we've seen it in Walking Dead, but it just felt kind of new and interesting this time around. So all of it worked so well. And I can't recommend the show enough. Honestly, if you have watched this far along and you were like, screw it, I don't care about getting things spoiled for me, I want to see if it's good, I highly, highly recommend it. At this point, in my mind, for this episode, it's 4.5 out of 5 stars. 4.5 out of 5 stars is what I give this thing. The story has more weight to it than you might expect. And of course, you've got this idea of a savior possibly involved in this. So that adds even more of an element of the possibility for heroic deeds or noble deeds, or possibly morally ambiguous deeds, or morally terrible deeds. So we shall see how this all plays out, because Marlene said that she doesn't want Ellie telling anyone the secret of what she is, because she would absolutely die. So what threat does Ellie pose to this world? So all of that, this way they did it from beginning to end, and David Fleming's music, Craig Mazin's direction, all of it from top to bottom, just some great stuff here. Well, if you had a chance to watch it, what did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you jump into it? Were you happy with the way it was interpreted? If you're a video game player of The Last of Us Part 1 and 2, were you happy with the way they laid everything out? Did you enjoy the way they kind of told the story in a unique way to make it work for this medium? Did they lose anything in telling it this way? I'm so curious to hear from the people who played the games. And for those who haven't played the games, did you enjoy the way they fleshed out the world? Did you get into it? Did you connect to all the characters? Did you like the introduction of all of them and their interactions with each other and establishing their relationships with each other? Did you enjoy the pacing, the writing, the score, the direction, and the acting from top to bottom? Did you enjoy that? Let me know in the comments section below. Remember to hit a like on this video, share it on your social media as well. Subscribe to this channel, trying to get to that 50,000 subscribers mark. I'm at 25,000, trying to double my subscribers. So we really appreciate you all coming aboard. I am talking to the boys. I might be having a Geek Buddy spoiler review with those two guys as well. We'll see if we can schedule that this week. Now that Willow is done, we got to replace it with another show, a review show. So maybe we'll be doing these Last of Us reviews. So look for those coming up later, or look for that one coming up later on this week on the Geek Buddies as well. All right, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for watching this review. You guys take care of yourselves. Be well, and I'll talk to you next time with another brand new review episode here on the Outlaw Nation.